I stand in front of my closet as it's a white canvas, like I'm the canvas. I'm literally experiencing this thing of like, how do I feel today? What material do I want on my skin, right? Like, right?
Yes.
Hello, Katie.
Hello, Soph. Wonderful to see your vibrance again today.
That's funny that you said that word. I feel really vibrant today. I woke up just really buzzed and excited, like often, but more than usual.
Well, wonderful. I love one of the aspects of collaborating and having friends and partners to play with is this amplification of what's wanting to emerge, and it just comes spontaneously. So that was really wonderful.
So, hey, I have a good one for you. When I moved here, I started dating this sweet, sweet guy. His name is Danny. He listens to our podcast all the time. He's a good friend. And one day I was wearing this green sweater, almond green, that kind of velvety colory green.
Oh, yes.
And I had shoes that were the same kind of color, not in a matchy way, but it had enough of it that it was like, oh, it rocked. And then I took my shoes off one day. I was with him and he looks at my feet and he's like, what's with your feet? I was like, oh, the shoes are 2 sizes too small, but I like them so much. Who cares that my feet are bleeding? He looked at me like he's all about comfort and goodness. And he looked at me and he was like, what is wrong with you? And I said, I'm from France and it is form over function. Therefore, it looks good and I'm wearing them. And I thought it'd be a really fun, thing to...
There you go. That the rules about fashion, but not just fashion, but how you are to present yourself to the world.
Yes.
That was a lot of my upbringing. And, particularly the contrast between my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother loved color and had she had Chanel suits that she would wear even when she would come to visit. So, and she would dress in the morning and she always smelled great. And, and her hair was, well, not necessarily coiffed, but, it was beautiful. So she was sort of what I would call put together. And so one of the things I wanted to learn when I was little is how to put myself together. My mother, in contrast, and I think it was partly because of the dysfunction in their relationship, she went much more toward trying to create a uniform for me because I was going to public schools, but I think she always wanted me to go to a private school where you had a uniform. And so she created a uniform for me, which consisted of pleated wool skirts.
Oh my God.
Because we lived back in the Midwest then. So in the winter, pleated wool skirts that were either in olive green, brown, navy, or a sort of a plaid, and white rolled up sleeves, cotton shirts. Oh, that was what she got for me for when I was little, and they were scratchy. Turns out I'm allergic to wool, and so that would always be scratchy and uncomfortable and hot and sticky, but also just there wasn't much room for any kind of creativity, and there was no color. And so as soon as I got old enough to buy my own materials, she said that she would make things for me. And so I started getting these incredible patterns and colors. And so I went from those of you who are observing today, who have us on video, you may actually want to watch this. So this is a color that you would have seen me in all the time when my mother was dressing me. And then when I started dressing myself, I began to see that the things that were really important to me, first of all, comfort. So that I can put this dress on in a minute and I'm ready to go. Well, it's not like it's fussy. It's very comfortable, but I've had a passion for color all my life. And so whatever I'm wearing has to have some play of color. But I also am relating so much to what you were saying about if it looks good, it doesn't matter if it doesn't feel good because, hey, that's what fashion is for, is you're presenting yourself to the world and,
that's how you feel.
Yeah, who cares how you feel? And so and I see that so much in fashion. It's interesting, not so much as through the pandemic, but before the pandemic, remember all the high heels, the stilettos,
Yes.
and people were, it disfigures your whole body. If your feet aren't functioning, your whole body gets thrown off, and you get all kinds of different pains. And so, what I've noticed is that we're going more. The fashion world is going more toward flats, more toward low shoes now, not stilettos. So, gradually, I think people are looking at what is this for? What are we wearing, what we're wearing for? And the first thing that comes to me is the incredible fashion industry, the billions and billions and billions of dollars of people saying, this is how you should look. And if you look this way, you're going to be more acceptable. You're going to appear that you have more value. So it's very much a outside in, you have to put this together with this. And I thought it might be fun for us to share some of the rules that we grew up with and how they have changed.
Well, for starters, for those who don't see what's happening, Katie removed her top, which was, may I say, a little boring, just really strict and one colored and very it felt like you couldn't really move actually. Exactly. And then she removed it. And underneath is this really, is it a dress or is it
It's a dress. In fact, I'll just.
Yes, please show us the whole thing.
Give you
that exactly
here.
So it looks like a Miro painting.
Yes.
It looks like gorgeous shapes of different colors. It's a really pretty dress.
Thank you.
A lot of colors and a lot of play, as you were saying.
Yes, and so it really contributes a lot of play, and also the ability to move. The ability to move freely, because if you look back over the history of how society has dressed women, it's always been about constricting freedom.
Talk about stilettos. Like, who can walk in these things? Like these shoes. I was actually, you know what? Someone told me once, I don't know if it's true, I can't swear by it, but that men would have invented shoes like this so we can't escape. Like, you can't really run. You can't run with these high heels. And so that it would be a way to keep us stuck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you just look around and you look at your experience when you're wearing, how safe you feel wearing high heels. And also, I'm remembering various movie scenes where people wear their tennis shoes to work and then they put them in a drawer and they put on their stilettos. Yes. The women so
they can have a life and then pretend something.
Yeah, the whole ta-da, here my perfection. And of course, I think The Devil Wears Prada is the best movie to explore all of that. That one of my favorite movies for all kinds of different reasons. Particularly for her Miranda Priestley's look. Oh
my God, yes. Oh my God, exactly. So it's a good segue for. I wanted to talk about, if it's not that, well, we're going to talk about the rules. I think that's a fun. Let's start there. So in my particular house, you could never have two patterns. If you were wearing plaid, then you could not have dots. If you were wearing polka dots, there certainly was no stripes. Stripes going in a horizontal way that makes
no. Because because also my mother always had the idea that I was fat or that she was afraid I was going to get fat. I looked at pictures of me when I was 9. I was rowing in a rowboat and I was thin. I was not fat. There's the picture. But in my mother's mind, she was really afraid I was going to get fat. And so, you never wore stripes horizontally because that makes you look fatter. And so
did you have the one about you don't show the knees or the arms or the whatever part of your body? I think it is last summer. I'm going to be ashamed of what I'm about to say. I think it is last summer that I wore something that showed a little bit of my knees. I do not show my knees ever.
I remember you saying that and what a celebration of freedom that was for you after all of these years to let your legs be visible. Right. And I remember that I would not wear shorts. I would not wear anything but long pants for years and years and years. And people were amazed when I finally showed up somewhere in shorts, like, whoa. And it was part of this, oh my goodness, with those legs, you're going to have to keep them covered all the time. Wow. So there was this whole, if you work on yourself really hard, you may be acceptable and you may be able to get a mate. So that was the whole idea, is that the boys won't like you. Now, this is for heterosexual couples. I'm sure the rules are very different, but I'm sure there are also rules for same sex, how you dress and how you show up. But if I can remember my mother saying, "Oh, you're not going to wear that, are you?"
Yeah. You're not going out, right? You're not going outside, right? This is
right. You're not going out in that. And it was often that it was not too revealing. It was that it didn't follow the rules. Like some of the rules for my mother were one focal point. You can't have two. You can't be having a person's eye be going in all these different directions. So if you have a fabulous belt, that's it. Or if you have a really pretty necklace, that's it. And everything else supports that. And then also, I grew up in the age of matchy-matchy, where you had twin sweater sets that were the same color.
Oh.
And then that would have to go with, and then your shoes would have to go with, and everything would be coordinated so that you were like a little bonbon,
I mean, do you think it has that quality of like keeping, so in this case, as a child, like, so they don't age because their daughters look so little and petite still this whole time? Like, what do you think it's about?
When I think back on it, I think it was my mother never really learned to love herself.
Okay.
And so she was always looking for validation from outside. And then when it came, her nervous system couldn't hold it, so it would leak out. So she could never really get filled up. It would like be pouring it into a sieve. So if she got some appreciation, because when she dressed up, my mother was actually quite beautiful. But she never knew that or had really embodied it. And so she was always, as an 8-year-old, I remember her asking me, "How do I look?" And I was like, how do I know? When she'd be, dressing to go out, but, she would have all, the rhinestones and so dressing up was also very different than daily clothes. And the rules about dressing up were also really different. But I also grew up in the era where we had cotillion, which for those of you for whom this is ancient history, was where you learned how to present yourself in public and how to gracefully accept an invitation to dance, and how to dance and how to wait to be asked, which was,
oh my Lord.
I know, it was, we'd be separated on both sides of the gymnasium, and the boys would be over there I could tell they were just squirming, and we'd be over like, is anybody going to pick me?
Yeah.
No, because the whole idea is, am I going to be picked? So there was no, I'm going to go over there and now I like that boy, I'm going to go over and ask him to dance. No. It was all just being so attractive that someone would come and pick you. And, I think that whole thing pervaded, it was not just a metaphor, it was really how things were back then. And then, of course, we hit the 60s, which, is when I came about, or hey, anything.
Anything goes.
Anything goes. And but the element too of creativity and of freedom to find your own uniqueness. But I'll tell you, before then, it was really, really buttoned down. And where that would show up was especially at church. Because, it would be, what are the neighbors going to think? What is everyone?
That's what the community sees you. Yes.
Yes. But I'm a representative of the family, and especially of my mother. And if so it reflects badly on her. So that was part of it. But also, I think at the root of it is, it doesn't matter how you feel. It matters how you look.
Yeah. I resonate with that. Yeah, for sure. Do you think there is an element, because I met you once at a lunch, so whatever we were wearing there, but I remember being invited to an event a week later, and I walked in and you were wearing this really long grass green, gorgeous, kind of almost like highlighted type of color, just a really look at me kind of color. And it was this long, do you remember that thing? Do you still have that?
I may.
I remember sitting there, and the entire time we were talking, I was like, wow, that is a gutsy woman that she's wearing this like gorgeous, but kind of very noticeable. So I'm also wondering, I want to push on something. Do you think sometimes we dress like it's almost like, did I really listen to you as much as I looked at you in that particular instance? Like when it's so dramatic, do you think sometimes we go towards, don't look at me exactly, look at my clothes, possibly?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And that actually has been difficult for me because I love color so much, and I love the art of a particularly wonderful dress or top. Just the art of it. And I forget that it's supposed to be supporting me.
As opposed
Showing
to
up.
being it, like we look at the jacket and that's all we remember.
Right, right. But I also know, and I mean, the stats are very clear on this, that women in public, people first look at what they're wearing.
Interesting.
It's really clear, and they first evaluate what they're wearing and then whether they should be taken seriously. So when you look at professional women, I'm just thinking of the vice president
Mhm.
who has her own uniform, and it's not feminine. It's very functional, and it's not flashy. It's not look at me. It's very much I'm here in this job and I know how to do this and I'm serious.
Mhm.
And her clothing reflects that. And
Mhm.
that's actually one of the wonderful things about clothing is that it can support all kinds of, what's my intention in showing up here.
Mhm.
But one of the big things for me was to learn to have the color support me rather than overwhelming me.
Exactly. And then there is also colors have a certain energetic, like emotional energy. Like when I was my 350 pounds, black was it, right? Like when you wear black, you look thinner, which when you're 350 pounds, I don't care what you're wearing, you can't really hide that you're, that size. And so now I have a physical, I cannot wear black. I cannot wear black. Even if I love the piece, or even if there's just a little bit of it, my body is just like, no, this is punishing for me to look at that. It's strong.
Well, yeah, that sounds like it's a rebound from all of those years where you wore black because you felt you had to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and rather than that you chose for a particular dramatic moment or wanting to, or the texture of the material, or the light on it. So for I think all of us, the question is, am I creating this? And does this support me? Does this support my essence? And I actually, a while back, purchased the domain Dressing from Essence.
Mm.
And I really love the idea of how can I dress in a way that lets people know,
Mhm.
what my feeling is today, what my creativity, how it's expressing today, and also an invitation.
Mhm.
So I have found that my dressing because I've been doing this for
Mhm.
over 40 years,
Mhm.
that my adventurous dressing has inspired hundreds, if not thousands,
Mhm.
of women, especially, but not just women. I've had men who've been like, okay, I'm gonna have some more patterns. I'm gonna have a color like Gay when I first met him, wore all brown
Yeah.
versions of brown. And, he had a brown jacket and brown socks and brown, it was different shades of brown, but he sort of looked like a big pile of dirt.
Mhm.
And now he, in his closet, you'll find melon and
And
lavender.
but yeah, lavender. I love that on him. Yeah.
Oh, and
Mhm.
and pink. He can wear pink, which
Yeah.
is just,
Yeah.
yeah. So it took a while, but
Do you think there is such a thing as because okay, so we were raised with a certain uniform, whatever version of that we may have received. Then we kind of go the opposite, and we become
right.
I can do whatever I want.
That's right. Wild. And
Exactly. And then for me, there is another era which I'm experiencing now, which is not reactive to other than the black. I will give you that. The black I really don't do. So it's still very much in reaction, but it's more. I stand in front of my closet as it's a white canvas. Like I'm the canvas. I'm literally
yes.
experiencing this thing of like, how do I feel today? What material do I want on my skin? Right? Like, right?
Yes. Yes, and see, for me, that it makes your dressing part of the play,
Yeah.
and an expression, but and that's also an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're showing up in the world, with your vivacity, and then dressed in a certain way. So for me, there's always got to be something a little bit original about it, a
Mm-hmm.
little bit unexpected.
Yeah.
So that I'm not showing up like just another version of what the latest fashion is, but something that, like having a different hemline,
Yes.
or having so it
The
doesn't have to
stitches
be
on the
just the color,
outside.
but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So the shape and the texture can also be part of the creation. Because my one I was just remembering, it's from the pleated skirts. Then we went to A-line dresses
Yes.
because they didn't really
So the waist.
emphasize waist. But I also think I was just occurring to me how competitive my mother was,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually one of my things that I've been so proud of all my life is I have a small waist.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an hourglass figure, but
Mm-hmm.
my mother would dress me so that was invisible.
Yeah. To make
So
you yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, are we, because I love this topic. At the same time, I'm like, is clothes that important? Like, is it that big of a deal?
Are you kidding?
I know, I know, I know, no, I know. But so I'm curious to like, do you think we can, like, what can we invite people to play with? Like, is there something about look at your clothes and decide which ones you wear because it's functional versus which ones really inspire you? Or what could we send them do on a mission of sorts to like awaken this play?
Oh, well, what just occurred to me is this is a great way to use your inner yes and inner no
Oh, say more.
to discover. So uh, years ago, it became clear to me that if my choosing comes from what I'm really experiencing authentically in the moment, it will either be a yes or a no.
Hmm.
And so in fact, I can do a quick um, uh, exercise so people can identify.
Yes.
So let's start with your no. So think about a recent time where you were in a situation you really didn't want to be there, but you sort of had to be there,
Okay.
or you were doing something that you really didn't want to be doing, but you sort of there you were. And I'd like you to notice when you tune into that, is there any part of your body that especially contracts?
I'm experiencing my chest like around not my breast, but like the bone right
Yes,
around.
yes,
Like
right. And that's often where if I'm going to get scared, there's like something grabbing me from the
yes,
sides of like, don't do that.
yes,
So what I find is if I will let myself be in a situation where I had a no, but I overrode it,
yeah.
and then really noticing where does my body contract, and that's a no signal. And you can build on that, but that's a great beginning to find your inner no. Now, if you think of a situation where you're with people you really enjoy, or you're doing something that you love to do, like walking, walking in the forest, or being at the beach, or being with friends, and the conversation is just going, let yourself create that vividly in your mind, and then notice, is there any part of you that especially expands or uprises?
That one's easy because I'm with you right now and I was experiencing just that. So that one is really present. There's something similar. It's not exactly in the same place. It's more like the front of my chest for this.
Yes,
Maybe
yes,
where my heart is, like right
yes.
my heart. That felt like pop, like
Yeah.
in a fun pop way. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, wonderful. It's also right up near your expressive center.
My throat.
So those two, how you're expressing yourself. So how you can play with, rather than having somebody give you rules, this is a chance for you. I'm talking about you, all of you who are listening, to let the way that you show up in the world be another facet of your creativity.
Hmm.
And so what I like to do, a lot of people lay out their clothes like Gay lays out his clothes the night before. I can't do that because
And I'll do that.
know.
I don't know exactly. I want to wake up and be like, what do I want to be today? Yeah.
No, I might even have put something out and then go, and then the next morning I go, what are you thinking? So what I do is I just kind of scan my closet and I'm listening for these signals from my body.
No.
And then what I get, so I'll get, oh, love that color. And then I will pull that out. And then that helps me guides me to whatever else I want to have go with that. And part of my rules, so my current rules are, has to be comfortable.
Yes. Number
So
one.
the very first thing, it has to be comfortable. So I'll touch it, but also I got to try it on because, if it, because there are all kinds of different elements of comfort. And I also think that we humans, particularly women, have not really made that a top priority. People will squeeze themselves into something that, they think looks good and, in the stiletto heels, et cetera, but they're not comfortable. And so how can you be yourself when you're fighting being uncomfortable all the time? So it has to be comfortable. It has to have something unique. And it has to be easy to care for.
So no dry cleaning. None of that.
Well, actually, I have a really great no perk dry cleaner. So I do send a lot of my things to be dry cleaned because I know they're handling it ecologically. So if there's something I don't want to have shrink. Also, I love silk. So I love the feel of silk. I love the breathability. So a lot of clothes, they don't breathe. And so when I put them on, I'm going, really
suffocating a little bit.
Yeah. And so I can't really think, I can't really create. And so if you use the yes and no, you can practice then and using yes and no for bigger situations. If we're, do I want to make this decision? Do I, am I agreeing with what this other person is saying to me? And how am I experiencing this whole thing?
So you're saying almost use the clothes picking yes and no as a terrain for practicing this thing for even bigger things in life, like
yes,
little practice ground. I think that's a really, really interesting, clever thing. I want to look at this for myself. I like that. No, I like that. I mean, it's taken me a long time too, because my body, when I was 350 pounds, was a bit of enemy is a big word, but it wasn't an ally.
No.
I looked to my body as an impediment, like I couldn't do what I wanted, and it made me eat things I didn't want to eat. I had a hard relationship with my body, and so
it was like it was an enemy, and held a lot of negativity that you weren't given any other way to deal with.
Probably, and there definitely was a moment where I passed. So I'd lost all this weight, and I passed a mirror, and I was dressed in a really cute way, and I looked at the mirror and I said, "Oh, this girl is really like her shoes. Wait, I have these shoes." Like it was me. Like I literally did not recognize, this other self. But I think that was the moment where I fell back in love with my body, and that.
Oh, that's so beautiful. The other one thing I want to just reflect back to you is how long it takes our body image to catch up with our actual physicality. And what I experienced you going through is a total rebirth of yourself. You've never been like this before in your whole life.
No.
And so I want to invite you to be gentle with yourself in this discovery, of, I like this. Oh, and that like actually liking yourself and going, oh, she looks good.
Oh, with that and not feel like it's bragging or it's
Right.
sweet. Like I would say it to you, like it's being a friend and noticing something that I find creative or beautiful or well put together in the new way of put together, not in a harsh way, but in a creative. Like I do think about how I put my clothes together.
Yeah.
Not in a punishing way anymore, like I used to.
Yeah, and that's such a big deal. And also to give, everybody who's experimenting with a new version of yourself to be gentle with yourself about changing your actual matching up your outer expression with your inner experience.
Mhm.
Those really take a while to line up to really be accurate. And for many women, there are several studies that women are taught not to evaluate themselves accurately.
Oh,
That from all of the, oh, that makes you look fat, or oh, that's not very slimming. Like the whole idea of I'm not right the way I am, I should be different. And that's what drives the clothing industry, is that, oh, if you just had a different, if that were a little longer or in a different shade or maybe a different size, or if you put
or
it
if you
together with
bought,
this,
if you bought that thing that I sell, you would look that way, that you would get that
yes,
approval.
you would look, oh, and you would get all of this approval. And but so it's a way that I think culture has us both be stifling our creativity, but also not really showing up as unique and creative in all of our lives. Because if you're in a little, a little jacket
Mhm.
all
It's
day
a
long, it's
jacket, literally.
literally.
Mhm. Wow. I feel like we are, you said that a couple of days ago. I love that term, but like this idea of like, we broke the dress code.
Yes,
We cracked the dress code.
cracking the dress code. And I also, when sometimes people have said, well, that's quite dramatic.
Uh-huh. Mhm.
And I can hear the tonality of, tone it down a little bit, babe.
It's a little too much. Too much.
Yeah. Well, and it's all part, I think, of the upper limit problem. Don't be too full of yourself.
Yes.
No, dress to fit in. Don't dress to stand out, for heaven's sakes. I'm just, Iris Apfel just died recently. And for those of you who don't know who she was, she died, I believe, at 102.
Or
She was the maven of outrageous color for her whole life, and putting all of different patterns together, and big jewelry and little jewelry, and
glasses. Oh my God, her glasses were.
huge glasses and all kinds of different colors. And so for me, I appreciate so much her pioneering. Yeah, you can show up any way that you want to. And I do see that more now, that people are doing things like putting plaids and polka dots together. And
Together, I know.
I know. It's
Yeah.
and how do you experience that when you see that? Does it remind you of
It does. I mean, I have the instant voice of like, well, you shouldn't wear two patterns together. But then I do immediately go to, and why should I not? Like, I question, I've become very inquisitive of this inner critic, very, very curious too. Because as you said earlier, they were also from an era, our mothers and a lot of that generation, where it was even less free and they had to struggle with it. And so they incorporated these rule making, whatever, that they think they're doing us a favor by passing that on to us. So I actually I was traveling with my mother not long ago in Central America, and we went to a store that I really like, and I tried a few things on. And I certainly had a lot of stories with my mother when I was younger where I could
that?
in anything. Like I would buy something just because I fit it in, not because I like the color, not because I like the material. Just the fact that I could close the zipper, was enough.
Yes.
But on this last trip that I was with her, and she used to be a designer and she was a model. I mean, fashion was really important to her. So she must have missed some of it as me growing up, as, it wasn't just from a place of judgment, but just her own pleasure of playing with her daughter and her in a fun way.
Yes.
Well, on this last trip, we at the store and I grab a pile of things because I love that brand. And I literally said to her, all right, I'm going to put things on and I'm going to walk towards you and you're going to tell me, I like this. I think this is elegant. Do I not? Like I brought this playful energy and she was sitting there and she was like, oh, I would say that woman is elegant. I would say that about this woman. We started having this like super playful thing. And I walked out there, the healing of my bones.
Oh, yeah. That actually makes me tearful. That you would have that experience with your mother, to be able to enjoy the art, the art of dressing, the art of fashion, and the play back and forth. Oh, what a gift. I imagine that you're still absorbing that.
Oh, it was very profound and very joyful. And those dreams I had as a little girl, where she would comment on my girlfriends that were, for lack of a better word, they were thin and she could play with them and have them dress things. And I would sit there, looking
Oh,
chubby. And this was, and I love that I've done the healing, that this moment that just happened is not like, well, F you. Now, like,
yeah, right.
so it was just this loving, wow, I get to share that with her and go try that belt and go try
Oh.
kinds of shoes. And oh my God, we had so much fun. We had
Oh, that just sounds. Oh, I'm just soaking that up. What a wonderful celebration of a healing for
Yeah.
you
yeah,
that you also then get to share with your mother, and a healing of a whole dynamic
probably
with her.
generations of it, like what's happened to her,
Ooh,
her mother, her, like the whole lineage. It felt like, we kind of recalibrated. So in closing, I'd love to hear, because I know a lot of people in your community, like I know when I'm in a workshop with you, I'm always like, what's she gonna wear? Like, what's gonna be, right? Like, do you find that that's something that will stay with you? Like, is it something that's so alive to you still, like even as much as you've done? Is it still?
absolutely. In fact, I have a couple of outfits that I said, "Oh, I've got to have that," and I haven't yet had the occasion to wear it. But
Uh-huh.
I'm waiting. Like one of them has little stars hanging off of it, and it's really, it'll be for just,
Oh.
yeah, it'll be for just a special occasion. But I also have been looking at more of the what really supports my expression, what really supports my, doesn't take attention away from what I'm wanting to share. But also, I think for all of us, lifelong, the changes in your own, like for me, the changes in my hair make it possible now that I can wear black, because I also didn't wear black because it made me look, pretty drained of color. But now that my coloring has changed, I can wear black. So it's opened up a whole new, combination of different colors. And I also have gone more toward the textures and the line,
Mhm,
because part of what I want is it flowing?
mhm.
So is it creative in itself, and does it inspire when people are looking at me? Are they also getting a sense of, oh, there's movement, and she looks comfortable and surprising. Oh, I could maybe try that.
Mhm. Well, spring is upon us, so now is a really good time to kind of go visit your closets and look at it through this lens of expression and self-love and healing and all these beautiful things. I think it's a really nice place to bring now.